Reporting in from Parliament House in Adelaide, Sam Telfer, the member for Flinders. How are you going, Sam?
Very well, Ricky.
I know you're close to question time, but one question we've got for the opposition and the government, we're waiting to hear from Jeff Brock on this one. Local government elections, the candidate details have been released with nominations closed, and more than 1 in 10 mayors has been re-elected unopposed. Has the promotional campaign to ensure people put their hand up to run worked?
I think it has. I mean, this sort of scenario does come up every 4 years when local government elections come. There are some which are elected unopposed, and that goes for election of councillors as well. There's always going to be a proportion, and you know, if there's communities that are happy with the direction of their council and the leadership of their mayor, well, it's reflected in their actions. But we have seen a significant number of people actually putting their hand up for local government and community leadership, so it is encouraging. It's only 5 weeks until the ballot's open, so it's now up to the community to make sure they understand who's who and who's putting their hand up for election onto their local council.
When it comes to the attractiveness of the role, if you like, I know you get paid a little bit to be a councillor, a little bit more to be a mayor, and some of the meetings are staged during the evening instead of the daytime. Are there enough incentives for people to even put their hand up?
Oh, look, you wouldn't certainly get into local government if you're trying to make it quick. Yeah, it's people who are actually motivated for the betterment of their community, which are the best ones to put their hand up for council. You get paid a bit of an allowance, but especially in regional areas, Ricky, where we're going out, it's not a large amount. It's enough to cover a bit of cost. But I certainly know when I was mayor and I was in local government for 11 and a half years, my business would have lost more money than I would have made from my absence. So it's really about people who have got a vision for wanting to make sure their communities prosper. And that's why it is an exciting time. The community can actually put forward people that they think are going to be the best leaders for them looking forward.
And so when it comes to councils, I guess, and the struggles they've got to grapple with you look at the property values that have gone up in regional South Australia, for instance, but then they can't necessarily pass on the rates challenge. They've got a pretty difficult task ahead of them, whoever does get elected in these elections.
Oh, no doubt. The financial challenge of councils is ever increasing. It's a balance between, you know, what rate rises their communities will be able to accept and what service levels their communities are asking for. And each council is different, and each decision that's made with an annual business plan or long-term financial plan is different, but we need to make sure that within councils there's a range of people that have an understanding of what impacts their decisions do actually make onto their local communities. And financially, the cost of things have been going up astronomically. It's a lot more expensive to put in a road or a footpath or a playground than it has been, and that's ever increasing, and especially with challenging financial times we've got at the moment. So the challenge is ahead for local government, but that's no different to what it is for our businesses and our residents all around the state. It's a challenge at the moment, and we need to make sure decision makers, especially at state and federal level, are doing what they can to actually keep those cost of living pressures down. But
councils have got their hand tied behind their back in one sense with rate capping, or what are the current policy settings in relation to that?
There's no capping in place for rates at the moment. But what has been put in place by the previous Liberal government is making sure there's a bit of an oversight on what council rate rises and budget expenditures look like. So SCOSA, which is the Essential Services Commission, was tasked with having an oversight of the top of council's finances, not to arbitrarily instruct them what to do, but to actually give some direction and make sure that there's an understanding both at council and community level of what the impacts of their finances are. So there isn't caps in place, and I think that's a very arbitrary move that's made, and we've seen that interstate in Victoria, New South Wales, where it hasn't actually turned out better results for communities. So in South Australia, those things aren't in place.
So it's a bit more like a lighter touch, sort of informed choices model rather than a heavy hand of government saying this is what has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. It's making sure that councils are actually taking into account all the different perspectives and not making decisions in a bubble.
And has that delivered good results in terms of, I guess, where rates have moved? Have you been able to get some data on that since the last government put that in place?
This process has only just begun. So this is where SCOSA have only just set the parameters of their oversight measures. I'm looking forward to the next few years where we start to see the results of that legislation change that the former Liberal government brought in.
Well, Sam Telfer, member for Flinders and Shadow Minister for Local Government, I'll let you get away to question time. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure, Ricky.